back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drew B. Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, it's the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, or what gender. You can make an amazing life in sales. Today's guest, no stranger to the journey. I'd like to welcome Justine Beauregard. How you doing today?
So good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, well, I appreciate you being here. You were even a little bit early, which tells me you're a serious professional. So I want to jump right in. I want to hear your crazy sales story.
Yeah. Well, I think what's crazy about this story is that it proved to me how good I actually was at sales after feeling like I sucked at sales for so long. My very first job in sales was actually a fundraising job. I worked for a local university, was plugged into one of those automated headsets for hours a day, just being told no, ignored, all the good things. We've all been through it in sales. And one day my supervisor left the room. And out of everybody there, I was the most responsible. And, at 20 years old, what does that tell you? So I'm in this room and I call this gentleman, and I just remember he was in his 70s. We had this conversation and I felt so good about it. I totally went off script, and we get to the end of the call and I said, "So I know you've never given to the school before. I'm only asking you for $25 today. Would that be possible?" And he paused and said, "No." And I thought, "Oh, I thought everything was going so well. What happened?" And he goes, "I'm going to give you 50." And my mind was blown. I was like, okay, I'm so much better than these scripts. Now I just have to keep doing this. And from that moment on, I closed every sale that I had the opportunity to close. I was asked to be a supervisor, grew in every role, and just kept doing it for the rest of my life. So it was a game changer.
One of the things I love most about sales, and it takes some people a little while to understand this, is that you can genuinely be you and be amazing at sales. And a lot of times what happens, and I would love your, opinion on this, but what I see a lot is that individuals who have a very unique personality or style about them, they kind of get put into a box by supervisors, sales leaders, managers, things like that. And because it's an inauthentic way of trying to approach the conversation, it doesn't go well. Is that something that you feel like you've seen along the way? I know you've worked with a lot of sales professionals.
I feel like what I see most often is one person becomes the model, and then everyone needs to fit that model in the eyes of the sales leader, when the sales leader shouldn't really be a sales leader. And that's a big problem in sales in general. We promote the wrong people. Like, sales leaders are totally separate from the doers. And there are certain people who just really get it and they operate in a very specific way and they're successful on calls like I was, but I wasn't really made to be a sales leader. I was made to be a salesperson for many years because I didn't know how to teach what I was doing to other people because a lot of it was innate. And so I wasn't a good teacher. And then once I shifted into, I think more people need the experience of good sales calls because it sucks to be told no a million times a year and be hung up on and have things not go well and believe things about yourself that aren't true. And the minute I sort of shifted into that was the minute I decided I had to completely change my career path. I had to learn new skills. I had to invest in myself differently. I had to use my time differently. I had to break what I was doing into frameworks. I had to think differently. Everything about my career changed. Now, I still do sales calls because I love them and I'll never give that part up. You'd have to pry it out of my cold, dead hands. But there's this bigger part where it's mission led. It's like more people need to experience what it feels like for me to sell in their own way. And I think that's possible for everybody, but it's about knowing your team and being able to play to their strengths and allow them to develop them as well.
Yeah, I really love that answer. The thing that happens, I believe it's called the Peters principle. It's when you're promoted past the point of your expertise and experience.
Ooh.
And that's why you see a lot of, top sales performers and companies get promoted to the leadership role. And then it falls apart and everybody's kind of awkward. Like, why is this happening? You're the best. And it's like, I'm the best at what I do, but not at showing others exactly how to do it. And I can speak from my own experience. Like, that happened to me early on in my career. I was just like, I show up, I figure it out, I get things done. Welcome to the team. Here's everything you need. Go get it done. And failure after failure. But as you said, when you look at new development of skills, and you start really thinking in the frameworks mindset, it
Yeah.
makes a big difference in how you start to learn things because you're learning to teach someone else. It teaches you how to communicate. And then, big picture, it allows you, if you're open to that, to elevate to that next level, which is where you get to where you are. And it's like, I love doing what I do and helping people. And also, on occasion, I get on the phones and I just crush it because that's
Yeah.
like that old school inner mentality. And so, what do you think is the biggest misconception for most people who are just getting into sales or kind of considering sales as a career?
Oh my gosh. Well, there are so many misconceptions about sales. And I think one of the biggest ones is that it takes a really long time to close a deal, or it takes a really long time to build rapport. And I think when you take a long time to build rapport, you're doing it wrong. And I think when it takes
Mm,
you a really long time to close a sale, you're not learning the right skills in the right order. You're not following the right framework, because I've gotten on calls and in 2 hours time, I've been able to close a $70,000 deal.
oh
That
wow.
didn't take months, right? And I've gotten on calls where in 45 minutes of meeting somebody, they're paying on the phone 5 grand, 10 grand. And so I've proven it wrong so many times, and I've had clients prove it wrong so many times that, to me, it started in the marketing world, and marketing and sales are married, and they need to talk and communicate well to each other. It's not about arguing, like your leads suck, well, you're bad at sales. We can't be having these contentious conversations. We need to work together. A lot of my roles professionally have been sort of bringing those two teams to the table and creating a really good conversation between them. And one of the things about, it takes 7 to 10 touches on the marketing side, or it takes all of this effort to build the rapport and the know, like, and trust on the sales side. We've been brainwashed to believe that it takes this really extraordinary amount of time, and we overcomplicate and add friction where it doesn't need to be there. And I think when you can kind of remove that curtain and be like, oh, closing sales is just about grabbing the context and understanding the needs of the buyer, and then just answering questions and being curious and staying with them. And that could take 5 minutes, that could take 5 months. But the more ready your marketing messaging is, the more likely you're going to pull those people in who are ready to make the move and act right then and there. You just have to build those skills.
I love the conversation around that marketing and sales as independent departments have to get married and understand each other on a deep level.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that I've really seen deep in a lot of the communities I'm a part of, right? I'm sure you have your own community that you're kind of like tight knit and you guys share all the dirty details. And the biggest thing that we've seen is that when a sales team can accurately track their conversations, the big objections, the things that they're hearing in a number of different ways, and they can bring that to the marketing department can take that and create new marketing messages that pre-sell around that objection so that when you
Yes.
start getting on the phone, guess what? That's not an objection anymore because it's already been discussed before the call.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, one of the coolest things that a young sales professional can do is start to understand that you're a part of a bigger machine, and where you fit in is exactly what Justine was just saying, is asking questions and getting familiar with the buyer so that you really have a deep understanding of what is the thing that keeps them up at night. And so, Justine, would I be curious for our, like I said, our younger or newer sales generation that's just getting into the game, what are some of the things they can do to really stand out? Because, I mean, sales is a pretty cutthroat, sharky, blood infested water if you're in that mindset, but there are different ways to think about it. So what do you say there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's one way, but I think there is one way for everyone. It's like there is no right answer, but there's a right answer for you. And the way to find that is to sell more. I think
Mm,
more people live in theory. They read a lot of books. They listen to this great podcast every week. They're tuning in, they're doing all the things, but practically boots on the ground, making the calls, call the damn leads. Like, you've got to get on the
come
phone.
on.
You've got to talk to people. You've got to understand, like, what are they asking for? What are they needing? How are you responding? Which one of your responses is working better than the last one? Or, which one feels more in flow for you? And you don't know that. I give the example a lot of Michael Jordan. If we're
Mm,
all trying to play basketball and we watch video upon video of Michael Jordan shooting 3-pointers, we're going to be like, all right, Cool. Looks easy enough, right? And then you get on a basketball court and you're like, whoa, that net is way higher and way further away than I thought it was going to be. And oh, wait, I'm not 7 feet tall and I've never played before. And then you get on the court and you are embarrassingly bad because you don't even get close to the net. And then you start to play and you learn your body and you learn the court and you learn how your shoes impact the game and how your jersey pulls and like all these little moments. And then finally you make your first 3-point shot and you go, oh, okay, what did I do differently that time? And then you note it down. And that's when you really start to learn. So everyone has their own unique way, but until you actually get on the court and you put in the time, like an Olympic athlete or anyone who's great at what they do, it's just taking as many 3-point shots as possible and not just doing it over and over again, but doing it mindfully, making notes of all those little steps and all those little changes that you're making to go, which one, which angle, which pair of shoes, which thing impacted this in the best way for me. And that's how you learn what your best innate sales skills are. But it's giving yourself the opportunity to find them, not just being told or believing because you listened to someone else or, and that's the problem with a lot of sales reps in general is we're put into a room and we follow what we hear being done well by other people. And we try to model that just as much as we're being taught that, because we see what's working and we think, oh, I've got to be that way. And so I was talking to somebody who was working at a car dealership and they were trying to become better at selling cars. And I said, where are you sitting? Who's near you? And they're like, well, this one guy, he's like really aggressive. And I'm not that way, but I'm trying. And I'm like, you're sitting in the wrong seat, like literally the wrong seat. You need to ask to move seats. And they were like, why? I'm like, because you're being totally influenced by this way of selling that is not your way of selling. And it was literally just moving from one side of the room to the other that completely changed how she was selling. And it's something that simple, but it's just, you don't know to look for it. So that's why mentorship is important too.
I love that. It's you really went deep on it, which I appreciate because there's so many different layers to the influence. And I'm totally grateful for everyone who listens to this show every week. Appreciate that shout out, by the way.
Yeah.
But again, I really like to think that success is a perspective. And just because the way I do something successfully doesn't mean that it's going to be successful for you. There was a book I read really early on, Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. And the whole premise of the book, like, definitely go grab it if you haven't read it before. It's like an hour read. It's not long. But it's just, there's really nothing new in this world, right? Every sales trainer is reading the same 6 or 7 books that have been around for 40, 50 years. We're all using very similar processes and frameworks, but those of us who are able to stand out are the ones who have created our own branding, who have created our own style around what worked for us. And we're now passing that along to those who it can also work for in some fashion. But some of it may work, some of it may not. So find a couple different people that you like, but really do it in a way that feels genuine, because the genuine side of the conversation when you're on the phone with a prospect is really where the money is made.
Yeah.
Now, do you have to close? Do you have to handle objections? Absolutely. That's all a part of helping someone make a decision in their life. And so, Justine, what do you think are, some of like the big objections that you hear, and how can some of the listeners like really start to work on overcoming them quickly?
Yeah. Well, the 3 biggest categories are money, time, and belief. So don't have the money, can't find the time, not sure if this is going to work for me. Those are like different examples. And
Yep.
I think what's most important when it's overcoming objections is actually the point that you made earlier about speaking to the marketing side, if that's you or if you have a team doing it, and having them pre-sell and talk through those objections and also face them head on. If you're getting a ton of sales objections about money, for instance, instead of trying to fight them, which is what a lot of people do. No, we don't, or we got discounts, or we're not expensive, or whatever. If they're coming back and saying, well, it is a lot of money, you go, yeah, it is a lot of money. It's a big investment. It's a big decision, and it's like, that's not okay. We agree.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And sometimes just the acknowledgement of, you're right, that's true. The person kind of goes, oh, okay, I feel validated enough to just move past that. It's not even an objection. It's more of a comment. And then you put this spin on it like there's a problem now. And so now you're trying to solve for something where you don't even know if that is an objection, if it is a problem, or if it's just a statement they're making and they just want to get it out of their body and they weren't expecting it and that's just what came out. And I think with a lot of objections, and I say this a lot to my people, there's power in the pause, right? If you just answer the question and don't try to fill the space or follow them down the path, like anytime I hear a money objection, which is very rare for me, usually it's the other way because I strategically underprice my offers so that it's an easy hell yes and I don't have to deal with objections because I prefer that. But when I get on a call and somebody has a money objection and I'm training them through it, the number one thing I say is don't follow them down the rabbit hole on price. Redefine that conversation to one of value, because there's somewhere along the way. I mean, we buy lots of things we can't afford. And the number one example I give in the US is houses, right? Like barely anybody pays cash for a house, but we buy the house knowing that we're going to take out a 30-year loan and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest on this home that we're already paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for. Why? Because we want it. And we're willing to do whatever it takes to get it because we see the value of it. But no one selling houses is going, you're right. It's expensive. Maybe we should discount this house, even though we know that 75 people were involved in building it and we have to make a certain profit. They're just like, the cost is the cost. This is the market. And in fact, we've got 10 offers over asking, and this is an asset. And they're focused on all the things about that make it super valuable. So when you can redirect to what the true objection is, because usually those money time belief objections are sort of like the first line of defense, but there's something deeper there. And it's usually just, I don't have enough information, or, something happened to me in my past and I want to make sure it's not going to happen again. So it's really just sitting with the prospect and understanding like what's beyond that initial comment or thought and how do we move past it in the right direction, to your point, to help them make a decision that a sales conversation should be truly a win-win for both sides, not a win-lose.
Yeah, I love that explanation. It's there's so many layers to sales that you really have to sit in it, and you have to recognize that a lot of times it's hurry up and wait, right? Because we're always in this like quick mindset, and what I run into a lot of times is people are in their head trying to assume what the person's going to say in response to the conversation instead of being in the moment and just listening to what's going on. And it could be tricky, right? We've all life be lifing. We got
Yeah.
things going on at home, we got things going on in the office, we got bills, we got yada yada yada. However, finding that center of focus, really sitting in the conversation with the individual and like getting them to feel heard and agreed with and validated in the terms of it being a decision to help them,
Yeah.
that is how it's going to be massive for you when you're closing more sales. Now, Justine, let's be honest. Nobody closes 100% of the deals that they talk to, right? We all have to follow up. We all have to overcome objections that are not just a one and done conversation. I mean, I work with a ton of real estate agents.
Okay.
You wouldn't be surprised how Call the Damn Lead speaks to that industry. I mean, it is what it is, y'all. Just live with it. We know. And the biggest piece is just getting them to understand that it is multiple touch points. It is multiple conversations. It is not always a one and done situation. So what do you consider to be good follow-up?
I love this question. I think good follow-up is simple. I think a lot of people overcomplicate the follow-up and a lot of people avoid the follow-up. So there have been many times, and I love telling stories like this and when I get the opportunity to share something like this because I think it's so undershared and undervalued, that there have been many times where I set a deadline, circled back, didn't hear anything, kind of got ghosted, right? Felt a little bit bad about myself for a minute, moved on to the next person. And then I would, a few weeks later, I'd be like, you know what? Whatever happened to Jenny? And I would just like have this thought. And then I would go back and I would just email and be like, hey, did you ever find somebody to help you with blah, blah, blah? And I would get a response. No. And thank you for reaching out because I meant to circle back with you. And you know what? I just paid. I'm ready to go. And it was like that one touch point where if I just ignored Jenny until the end of time, she would have forgotten about me and I would have forgotten about her and everything would have been the way that it would have been. But that choice to go back and kind of it is a swallow your pride, swallow your ego type moment of like, this one last thing that's going to make me maybe feel a little bit desperate or maybe feel a little bit out of my comfort zone. But I'm willing to do it because selling is also a big role in advocacy. You're advocating for that client getting what they want. And my belief as a salesperson that nobody can ever outsell me or undersell me on is the fact that my offer, when I make it, is the best solution for that person. And I don't want to leave them hanging with less better options than what I've presented to them. So once I've decided you need something and I know I can help you with that thing, I just need to follow up with them. And so it's usually my biggest pet peeve, and I've done so many videos about this and it resonates a lot when people hear it, is the follow-up message just checking in. It's so self-serving. It's looked over so quickly. It's very salesy. Whenever someone sends a message like, hey, just checking in, how's it going with blah, 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 it's always like, I want to know. I want to close you. And they can read into that and it feels so familiar. I'm big about the pattern interrupts that help separate us from the rest of the people in the industry. So instead of saying just checking in or how are you or how's your weekend been, which every salesperson is going to use as a script, I'm checking in with a direct, clear question, a one-liner, and then I'm done. So how's it going with that thing we talked about? You mentioned this and I found an article that was relevant, like something to pick back up the conversation and actually give them a reason to respond to you. So you're adding more context or you're showing them you were paying attention or you're being an advocate, but it's something that's going to allow them to go, oh, thanks for that, instead of, I have to get back to this person.
Yeah, that's fantastic. One of the big shifts for me in my follow up journey was understanding that shift from like the self serving conversation to the, you know what, let me just throw some more value on this on top of the value that we've already given you, because at the end of the day, what you're going to pay us is going to be significantly less than what you're going to gain from working with us. And the small investment of 30 seconds to find a blog post or to find a podcast episode or something that just says, hey, I heard this, made me think of you, wanted to send it over while I was thinking about it. If you still need any help, I'd love to have a conversation. And it's
Yeah.
like easy peasy lemon squeezy. But so many people will just stick to the baseline templates, those things that are auto pre-made from Chat GPT that have zero personality, that have zero life to them. And you can tell. And I'm not one that's against using, AI for content creation and shortening the timeline that it takes you to create, conversations with people. But there's an element to what Justine said about paying attention, to listening, to that one little thing that makes the person realize that you weren't zoned off into wherever land while they were telling you about their long lost granddaughter that matters the most to them in the world, and how they
Yeah.
want to buy a big plot of land and, build tiny home, whatever. Like, there are those minute details that when you make note of them or you pay attention, that is what you can refer back to in the follow up that makes you totally different than everybody else. So, Justine, that was a masterclass on sales and objection handling. So I appreciate you, but I do, want to be respectful of your time, because we could probably sit here and nerd out for several hours on this
Oh, yeah.
topic, because you're like me. We love it.
Yeah.
But what's the best way for me, the listener, everybody to come find you, follow you, and check out more of your amazing content?
Yeah, thank you so much. Sell with Justine is my website and all my social handles. And then I have a great 4-part series called standoutseries.com. You can go there and grab videos on how to find your distinctive edge as a salesperson, how to create objectionless free offers, objectionless paid offers, and framework your process to get repeatable sales with less effort.
Hey, it's like you've done this a time or two.
Once or twice, yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much again for being here. I really appreciate your time. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Listen, you guys know what to do next. If you enjoyed the show, go share it on social media. Tag us, let the world know that you invested some of your most valuable asset, your time, and that you got something of value out of it. Maybe even send it to someone you know who sucks at sales. Like, they could get better. You don't have to tell them they suck, but like, send it to them. It's like, hey, this made me think of you. That great follow up process we just talked about. And If it just means the world to us, because again, if you got something of value out of this and you share it with someone that you know it will help, that's what Call the Damn Leads is all about: helping people find their edge, dial in, close more sales, and live the life that they want to live. And here's the thing: if you have an awesome story like Justine, you out there just taking care of business in the sales world, I want to hear about it. Head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your details. Let's schedule in on the show to talk and have an amazing conversation just like today. You guys know what? Pick up the phones, call the damn leads. We'll see you on the next one.